A lot of great 80s horror movies didn't work on release. Luckily, time was kinder, and they ended up as cult classics. In this video, we're only talking about a few of them, so keep the list going in the comments. Let's start with Frank Henenlotter's Brain Damage from 1988. Henenlotter is best known for the Basket Case series and Frankenhooker, but this might be his strongest work. Depending on how you look at it, it's either a sharp allegory about dependency or a snapshot of late 80s New York. It's a real film hiding inside what looks like a cheap B-movie horror comedy. The story follows Brian, who finds a strange talking parasite named Aylmer. Aylmer sounds like he belongs on late-night horror TV, which makes sense since he's voiced by horror host Zachary. Aylmer injects a fluid into Brian's brain that triggers intense hallucinations and euphoria. The catch is that Aylmer needs brains to survive, specifically human brains, and if Brian wants to keep getting that fluid, he has to help Aylmer get them. And as you can probably guess, people don't exactly line up to donate their brains to a hungry parasite. When Brain Damage first came out, some critics were not gentle. One called it a brainless movie. Another said it was more revolting than it is amusing, and dismissed it as a meaningless exercise in slime. Its theatrical run does not sound much healthier either. Rick Hurst, who plays Brian, later remembered going to a screening where he, his family, and a few friends were the only people there. As with many of the films we'll talk about today, appreciation grew after it reached home video. Brain Damage has since been treated as a cult favorite, called a gnarly gem of 1980s punk horror, and included in later lists of great body horror films. Parents is set in the 1950s and follows Michael, a young boy who begins to suspect that his own parents are cannibalistic killers. For a film built around that premise, it is also surprisingly funny. As he tries to find out the truth, he runs into a series of strange obstacles and finds clues that make him question what he thinks he knows. But audiences did not exactly turn it into a hit. In the United States, Parents earned about $870,000 against a $3 million budget. The casting is one of the film's strongest parts. Brian Medorsky plays Michael in what appears to have been his only major screen role. The adult cast has more familiar names: Randy Quaid as Michael's father, Nick Lamel, Mary Beth Hurt as his mother, Lily, and Sandy Dennis as Michael's school guidance counselor, Millie Dew. It was also the feature directing debut of Bob Balaban, who was generally better known as an actor. Pin is the definition of a hidden gem. The film was supposed to be one of New World Pictures' final theatrical releases, but as the studio shut down its film division, executives changed their minds after a negative test screening. Instead of going to theaters, Pin went straight to video in 1989. Based on a novel by Andrew Neiderman, Pin follows two siblings, Leon and Ursula Linden, raised in a wealthy household under the strict supervision of their father, Dr. Linden. He is a serious medical professional, played by Terry O'Quinn, and he has a strange way of talking to his children. Instead of answering difficult questions directly, he uses a life-sized anatomical dummy named Pin. He sits the dummy on his lap and, using ventriloquism, lets Pin explain things for him. After their parents die, Leon and Ursula are left alone in their large, empty house. Ursula is able to move forward, but Leon never loses his attachment to the dummy. Anyone who questions that bond or threatens to come between Leon and Pin faces serious consequences. If you have never seen it, it is worth seeking out. Monkey Shines, one of George A. Romero's few major studio films, follows Alan Mann, a man left quadriplegic after an accident. He is given a capuchin monkey named Ella, a service animal trained to help him with everyday tasks around the house. At first, Ella is there to make Alan's life easier, but then he discovers that she has a telepathic connection with him and that she can act on his darkest impulses. Soon, Ella's own violent behavior starts to turn against him, and Alan finds himself fighting for survival against the animal that was supposed to help him. Monkey Shines was affected by studio interference. and the finished film can feel uneven. Romero had to change the ending at Orion's insistence, and you can sense that a different version may have existed before the final cut was reshaped. Even so, Romero balances real menace with moments of camp, and the main idea still works. When it came out, the film failed to make its money back, earning about $5.3 million against a $7 million budget. Its marketing also caused a separate problem. Some disability rights groups criticized the early promotional material, which showed a toy monkey in a wheelchair. After protests, Orion Pictures publicly apologized, removed that imagery from the campaign, and said it would consult disability experts on future advertising. Society was a critical success in Europe in 1989, but in the United States, Brian Yuzna's film was shelved for 3 years before it finally got a release. The reaction was not always warm. Variety called it an extremely pretentious, obnoxious horror film, dismissing its mix of kinky sexual elements and extravagant makeup effects. Well, critics are critics. It follows Bill Whitney, a popular high school student living with his wealthy family in a sprawling Beverly Hills mansion. Bill wants for little, but he has always felt out of place, like he does not belong. Slowly, he starts to realize that the elite people around him, including his own family, are hiding a fiendish secret. The first hour plays out like a slow-building mystery with a bright John Hughes-style atmosphere that feels slightly off. Bill suspects something is wrong, but he can't figure out what. The final half hour, when everything is revealed, is one of the most remarkable and revolting endings in horror movie history. You won't forget it. The stuff is basically about killer dessert. America becomes obsessed with a new low-calorie treat, only for it to turn out to be a sentient, parasitic organism. It takes over people's minds, changes them into something zombie-like, and eventually consumes them from the inside. For a movie with that premise, the cast is surprisingly recognizable. Paul Sorvino, Garrett Morris, and Danny Aiello all show up. And yet, the stuff never really found a wide audience. Part of the problem may have been the concept itself. In 1985, a movie about killer dessert was probably not the easiest thing to sell. Its release history did not help either. Director Larry Cohen later said the film was trimmed in post-production after disagreements with New World Pictures over pacing and tone. The studio wanted something closer to a straight horror film with more gore, while Cohen saw the stuff as basically a satirical comedy. He believed the movie was hurt because it was sold as horror, when that was not really what it was. There was also one very unlucky opening day detail. When the stuff opened in New York, a hurricane hit, and the newspapers were not delivered. According to Cohen, the film had received strong reviews, but no one got to read them. Near Dark is Kathryn Bigelow's 1987 vampire western, a film that was almost buried on release and nearly took Bigelow's early directing career with it. The timing could hardly have been worse. It came out the same year as Joel Schumacher's The Lost Boys, a movie widely considered one of the defining vampire films of the era. While The Lost Boys was built to be a hit, a glossy popcorn horror movie for the MTV generation, Near Dark is a much bleaker take on the genre. Bigelow presents vampirism as something violent and ugly, a life of killing, hiding from daylight, and moving from night to night just to survive. The word vampire is never even used. The film also has a strong cast, including Lance Henriksen and Bill Paxton, and one of its most memorable scenes is a small-town bar encounter that turns into a bloodbath. At the center is Caleb, played by Adrian Pasdar, who is bitten and turned by May, played by Jenny Wright. After that, he's pulled into her world, but he never fully accepts it. Years later, there was even talk of a remake. In the mid-2000s, a new version was announced, but by 2008 it had been put on hold because it was considered too similar to Twilight, another story about a romance between a human and a vampire. Michael Mann is usually associated with crime films and action thrillers like Thief, Heat, and Collateral. But early in his career, he made The Keep, a gothic horror film about monsters, Nazis, and a mysterious fortress. The film had a very troubled production and release. Mann's original cut was much longer, but the finished movie was cut down into a much shorter theatrical version in an attempt to make it more streamlined. The result is a film that can feel incomplete. And at the time, it also failed to make its money back, earning about $4.2 million in the United States against a $6 million budget. The story is set in Nazi-occupied Romania, where German soldiers take control of an ancient stone fortress known as the Keep. When they disturb what is hidden inside, they release a powerful evil force, and the situation quickly becomes stranger and more dangerous than they expected. We still do not have Mann's director's cut, and it is strange to imagine him making a horror film like this at all. But even if the Keep does not fully represent what he wanted to make, a lot of his style is still there.